Shabbat Shalom. To our triennial reading of Vayechi, the last parsha in the book of Genesis, opens with Jacob on his deathbed, calling his sons to gather round him so he could speak to them concerning Asher Yikra Etchem Ba'acharit Hayamim, what was to befall them in the days to come. Now, there's a midrash that says that what Jacob intended to do here is reveal to his sons what was to come at the end of days, the Messianic age. However, as he was about to reveal those secrets, the Shekhinah, the immanent spirit of the divine, left him, and he was no longer able to prophesy. So, unable to reveal the future, he spoke the words that we find here instead. Now, as we conclude our reading of the book of Genesis, we also get ready to conclude the secular year, saying goodbye to 2023 and looking forward to 2024. I imagine at this time we might also long for a prophet to speak to us of what is to come in days ahead. If only. But like Jacob's children, we're left with something else, and we need to make do. We have this book that we've just finished chanting for the year, and while it does not have these explicit prophecies of the end days for us, I believe it has provided us with the tools necessary to move with strength and to move with courage into an unknown future. Because for something to truly be a part of our canon of sacred literature, it needs to be relevant to our lives. When we encounter the text must speak to us. And that is why we read them again and again, year after year, because we are not the same each year. So the text will be saying something new to us each time we read it. When we read them right, sacred texts have a message for us where we are. Be they words of comfort, be they words of challenge. And I don't know about you, but for me, Genesis this year, the messages were particularly strong. Just to go back, we started the cycle of reading Genesis on Simchat Torah, October 7th and October 8th, 2023. As we read about the primordial chaos, as we read the idea that humanity is created in the divine image, we were simultaneously learning of the horrific attack in Israel, news that shattered our sense of a world of order, and broke our hearts with the news of so many people, each a divine image murdered. And as the weeks went on, and as the war intensified, Genesis continued to speak to us. Words of comfort, words of challenge. In Parashat Noach, God regrets creating the world because it is full of lawlessness and violence. In Hebrew, Hamas. And God sets out to start again. In Lech Lecha, Abraham leads a daring military operation to rescue his nephew Lot and others who had been taken captive. In Vayera, Abraham challenges God, arguing that to sweep away the innocent with the guilty is not just behavior worthy of the judge of all the world. In Toldot, Isaac and the Philistines quarrel over wells, forcing Isaac to move time and again before finally being able to make peace. In Vayishlach, we read that Jacob, learning that his brother Esav is approaching with 400 men, was both afraid and distressed. And the Midrash takes this to mean that he was afraid that he may be killed, and he was distressed that he may be forced to kill. It's been a lot in these last 3 months, and Genesis has been a faithful companion. I could give more examples, but what I want to do is focus on the bigger trajectory of this text that we have just finished reading for the year, where we began and where we ended up. We began with the creation of the universe, a dark primordial chaos being replaced by light and order. And we end, the last line, we end with Joseph in a coffin in Egypt. So when we zoom out to take a look at the overarching structure of Genesis, we actually see a book that is constantly zooming in, moving from the world as a whole to humanity, to a particular family. The universal and the particular are keys of our tradition. As Rabbi Jonathan Sacks wrote in Crisis and Covenant, Judaism embodies a unique paradox that has distinguished it from polytheism on the one hand, and the great universal monotheisms, Christianity and Islam, on the other. Its God is universal, the creator of the universe, author and sovereign of all human life. But its covenant is particular. One people set among the nations, whose vocation is not to convert the world to its cause, but to be true to itself and to God. That juxtaposition of universality and particularity was to cause a tension between Israel and others, and within Israel itself, that has lasted to this day. And this tension that these two forces have on each other can make us uncomfortable. I've told this joke before, but it bears repeating. There's a rabbi who spent years doing outreach on college campuses and is now giving advice to the new rabbi on how to identify those on campus who are Jewish. Talk to the people about their religious identity, the old rabbi suggests. If a person says they're Catholic, you know they're Catholic. If a person says they're Lutheran, you know they're Lutheran. And if a person says, can't I just be a human being, you know they're Jewish. So the students in this joke, and there are many of them, have taken the universal message which Judaism introduced to the world and taken it to its extreme conclusion, which ultimately leads to a rejection of any of the particulars that originally came with this message. On the other hand, we can see others who might be uncomfortable with the universal implications of our particular message. Rashi famously opens his commentary on the Torah, asking why it begins with the creation of the world. Because really, this is a law book. It's a law book for the Jewish people, so one would think it should start actually in the middle of Exodus with the first commandments given to the Jewish people. His answer is Bereshit serves as a proof text to the other nations that we have a right to the land of Israel. As God created the world, God can give it to whoever God wants. So here, the idea that God created all the world, all humanity, it's only important, so much so that it helps the Jewish people with their particular claim on a particular land. I want to reject both of these attempts to solve the problem of the universal and the particular, because it's not a problem. We need them both, and we need them both to remain in tension. It is one of the core dynamic tensions that I believe gives Judaism its vitality. It is the tension of the tightrope. We need both, because if either side is slackened, you fall. So, what can looking at Genesis as a whole teach us about how to hold on to these two ideas? As I said before, there's a trajectory in the book. It's not just about the universal and the particular, it begins with the universal, and it moves to the particular. So going back to Rabbi Sacks, he states in the introduction to his commentary on the Siddur that the move itself is particularly Jewish. He argues, Western culture, under the influence of Plato, has tended to move in the opposite direction, from the concrete instance to the general rule, valuing universals above particulars. Judaism is the great counter-Platonic narrative in Western civilization. We see this all over the place. We see this in our liturgy. The first blessing before the Shema is about the creation of light in the morning and about the cycle of day and night in the evening. A universal theme could speak to anyone. The second blessing is about God's revelation of Torah to the Jewish people. A particular blessing for a particular people. During Birkat Hamazon, the first blessing praises God as providing sustenance to all. The second praises God for the good land God gave us. Again, the shift from the universal to the particular. And this direction, I believe, allows us to hold on to the tension. When we move instead from the particular to the universal, that Platonic move from imperfect material examples to the world of the universal ideal forms, there's a tendency to, in the end, downplay the significance of any particular. And this can be dangerous and dehumanizing. Perhaps as dangerous and dehumanizing as any ethnocentric idea that elevates the particulars of one group over another. The example I think of is the common critique that someone will level at someone who says Black Lives Matter is all lives matter. As if somehow the call to the universal negates the call of the particular. Which has never made sense to me, so maybe as Rabbi Sachs said, I'm in that Jewish worldview. When it says all lives matter would lead one to the conclusion that Black lives matter, that Jewish lives matter. If all lives matter, then Black lives matter, and Jewish lives matter, and any particular group's lives matter. So starting with the universal and moving to the particular allows us, I believe, to fully value both. All human beings are created in the image of God. Therefore, all human beings have intrinsic worth. And the worth is not in spite of differences, but in many ways because of the differences. And our tradition argues that these differences are not a bug, it is a feature. I'm in Silicon Valley, I can say that. Mishnah Sanhedrin 4:5 famously states, "For humans stamp many coins with one seal, and they are all like one another. But the ruler of all rulers, the Holy Blessed One, has stamped every human being with the stamp, with the seal of the first human. Yet no one of them is like another. Therefore, one must say, for my sake was the world created." We open Genesis with the creation of the entire universe. We end with the death of a single person, Joseph. From the primordial darkness to the darkness of a single coffin in Egypt. From one perspective, this is a major transition. Grand, cosmic, universal, to small, individual, particular. But I think from another perspective, maybe it's not such a big change at all. As all of our individual particularities really are the ways in which the universal image of God is made manifest in the world. So as we finished our reading of the book of Genesis, we said, Chazak, Chazak, v'nit chazek. Be strong, and we will be strengthened. And as we conclude the secular year, as we say goodbye to 2023 and look ahead to 2024, may we continue to find strength, courage, comfort, and challenge in our sacred literature. And may it remind us that in these challenging times, it is holding on to the tensions our tradition has bequeathed us that allows us not just to survive, but to thrive, whatever the uncertain future may hold. Chazak, Chazak, v'nit chazek.
Thank you, Rabbi Roller, for that particularly universal Devar Torah this morning. And now Shali Kuhn will